Good evening and salutations, my Days of Our Lives fans. You know, just to start off on a positive note, it was actually nice to sit there and see Amy in a different side, when she was with the baby and she was being all goofy and silly and, loving and stuff like that. I appreciate that, right? Because up until this point, all we have been getting is overbearing helicopter mom, Bible dumping, judgmental version, right? And just kind of annoying in a sense with a lot of those qualities, I don't fully fault her because, listen, your religion is your religion. And, you live by the Bible, it is what it is, right? I think, usually the problems that I have with people that are that religious is that they tend to, not all, but a lot of them tend to be very judgmental, And she just always gave that vibe, and every time that she talked to someone, it was always in a certain tone where it just came across as just very judgy, right? But when she sat there talking to Sophia today, Sophia's like, oh yeah, I'm in Chicago and I found a new lawyer and, I'm meeting with the adoptive parents now. And she's like, I'm sorry, what? Because the last thing that she's sat there thinking is, okay, my daughter's at home or whatever, bed resting and stuff. And she finds out her daughter is in Chicago. So yeah, in the reality, any parent would sit there and be like, livid about that. She's like, where's Tate at? Oh, well, Tate is somewhere else and I didn't want to bother him or whatever. And she's pretty much like, well, I can practically do what I want and I'm not going to, well, she's like, I'm not going to let you ruin another adoption. And she just hangs up the phone on her. Meanwhile, she's already scheduled for jury duty. She can't get out of jury duty. So she asks her husband to just go to Chicago, aka Chirac for some people, and just look for our daughter. And you hear him on the phone practically sitting there saying, Chicago's a big place, right? Yeah, I know that. Just go and find her. But it sucks because she can't get out. She can't sit there and, skip jury duty or anything like that. She just got to sit there and suck it up, But she does get out of it, though. Once she finds out it's EJ and Johnny and stuff like that, she's like, yeah, I'm going to have a bias against him because I do not like you, EJ. I think you are a horrible person. And your son is a gun-toting maniac or something like that she says. And she's like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to sit there and be impartial. So, I'm like, all right, you can go. This whole goddamn thing. So, this EJ and Belle stuff, they get to the court thing, the courtroom. And he does sit there and say, hey, listen, I was not trying to seduce you or anything like that. I wanted to sit there and make love with you because, I like you and everything. And then Belle's like, but you also wanted Johnny to be acquitted. Yes, that's true, but I still do like you. And Belle's like, listen, at this point, they both kind of apologize. And Belle's like, listen, while we're in the courtroom, can't sit there and have any of that for Johnny's case. So it's not going to be good if we look like, whatever. I'm like, Belle, you were in bed with the son of the person that you're supposed to be prosecuting. That is also their lawyer. That is also his lawyer. All of this looks out of pocket. All of it. So I'm like, you think if you just keep a little bit of boundaries here and there, you're not doing any flirty banter back and forth, that's just going to be like, okay, it's totally fine. No, girl, what is wrong with you? But whatever, he agrees, and they get their jury selection going. Meanwhile, Leo decides to leave the house, and Rafe's like, I want to sit there and hang out with the baby, but Leo has a reason of why he takes the baby to the courtroom. Which, okay, let's talk about Leo for a hot minute. Leo has never really been a character that I've fully been on board. Listen, I get it, okay? there are people that like different aspects of soap operas, right? Some people love the romance, some people love the cheese, the humor, the drama, the action, and stuff like that. I've never really been one person to sit and be like, oh man, I love the comedy on this show, right? And Leo has always sat there and provided that with mixed results. Some people love it, some people really don't. I'm one of those people that don't, that doesn't really appreciate it. And so every time he comes on, there's always that jokey music that they play whenever he comes on, and it's just like, okay. So he's outside, at first before he goes in the courtroom, he's with Amy and they're talking about the sorrow and, you know, Amy's actually showing a different light to her, which is welcoming to sit there and say the least. But then, he goes in the courtroom and he's like, oh man, I got, these two. And he's like, well, listen, I have this baby or whatever, so, I can't really do the whole jury duty thing. And, listen, both of them know his situation. They're like, so you got, like, what, 3 people in the house, and you're telling me that nobody can watch this show while you're sitting there serving jury duty? Like, are you serious? So, I guess it's supposed to be this wacky, funny moment, but it was just like, when is this over? Because, they always play the jokey music whenever he comes in. Whenever that happens, I always roll my eyes. They ask him a couple of questions like, can you be impartial? You can't sit there and talk about the case, this, that, and the third. And long story short, he can't get out of jury duty. So, then he goes back home and he starts whining to Gabby. Like, Gabby wants to sit there and listen to him. The problem is that they're trying to find a way to make this whole thing work. And in all reality, everything that Leo has done up until that point, going to Gabby's purse and stuff like that, that would have practically kicked anybody out. The fact that he's there, I guess it's supposed to be a level of dysfunction and being uncomfortable, but in reality, it just comes across like they just don't have money for another set. And he does not make enough money for him to sit there and move out with Javi, because they should have been moved out. Like, this is just like idiotic. You're gonna sit there and tell me that Gabby and Leo can sit there and really live in a house and just be copacetic, like they don't have issues with each other, especially Gabby. Especially the recent thing of anyway. So, you're just kind of stuck with that part. Now, Tate's not leaving. Tate is in Doug's room. He's like, I'm not leaving until I get answers. I'm getting answers one way or the other. And, he's like, where's Holly? You were sketchy as hell yesterday. I want to know where she's at. He finds some pictures. The pictures that the loan shark threatened him with. He's like, yo, what kind of pervy shit is this? What's going on? You got pictures of her and Ari. Yo, I'm calling the cops. At this point, he has to sit there and tell him the truth. So now at this point, Tate's like, listen, you could have just sat there and asked me. He thought about that, but he's like, well, then you would have had to ask your dad, and then that just would have been an issue. I'm like, bro, listen. What was your plan, dog? Because you didn't have a plan. You talking about, I was gonna steal money from the Brady's safe or whatever, or from the Brady's register, but he already cleared it out. I'm like, bro, I doubt even if you would have actually been able to steal it, it would have been enough money. You are literally sitting on your hands doing nothing. You are doing nothing, and this makes sense to you. So Tate's like, listen, I have the money, I've been saving up for a car, I'll do it. Doug's like, oh, you really do this for me? No, dumbass, he's not there doing this for Ari and Holly. You can't be this stupid. He's like, listen, I'm going to do this, but when this is done, you pack a bag, you get up out of Salem. He's like, fine, I will. I don't think he will. Meanwhile, Holly and Ari are kind of having somewhat of a moronic conversation. See, Ari is pissed at Doug for putting them in this position. Holly has known Doug a little bit longer, understands the situation a little bit more better, and realized that these people are not playing. And most likely just want to sit there and keep bleeding him dry because, they're loan sharks. So, And Holly's like, listen, he's been a little distance with me and probably sit there and protect me. And that's when Ari's like, you know what, you're right. He did sit there and tell me that there's some people that he owes money to, but I said it's fine because I'm a big girl and I can sit there and take care of myself. Well, I guess I was wrong about that, and I'm not gonna lie, that was so satisfying hearing. That was so satisfying hearing. How many times have you sat there and heard somebody sit there and say, hey, listen, I'm a grown ass adult. I can sit there and handle this. Until they realize that they can't, but they will never sit there and admit it. There was something about the fact that she actually admitted it was like, you know what? It was worth doing this review. Just to say that. But I was like, listen, we can't just sit here and wait. We got to do something in case Doug, most likely the goddamn town loser, can't do anything to sit there and help us out. Now, at first, Gabby is trying not to freak out. And Rafe is like, hey, listen, you don't want to go down to the lake. And then, you just embarrass yourself. And then Ari wants to sit there and be rebellious. So she calls the sailor in the hotel. They didn't check in. And then Rafe comes back. The minute they didn't check in, she's been sitting there texting all night. I was like, okay, now you can kind of freak out. Now is an appropriate time to freak out. And then when Rafe sits there and puts out some feelers, Holly's car is still in the driveway. And, it's still in the driveway, so they didn't sit there and drive up there. They didn't check into the hotels. Now, at this point, girl is freaking out at this point, which is an appropriate time to definitely freak the F out. Tate runs across Amy for a hot minute, and, he's like, listen, I wasn't sitting there partying. I didn't even, he's like, yo, listen, I didn't even know anything about Sophia and going down somewhere, whatever. Like, I had no idea. And hell, it turns out he didn't even actually go to the lake. But he was like, listen, I can't talk right now. I'll sit there and definitely help you out at a later time. I gotta sit there and do something. I'm surprised he actually sat there and talked to her for that long. But, he had to sit there and go to the bank, get the money out, and, pay these loan sharks. But I have a feeling that while Ari and Holly are snitching trying to get themselves out of the situation, they're going to unintentionally make things worse. Let's say Thursday, right? I guess Friday's going to actually be pretty interesting. Anyway, I feel like that's pretty much about it for the most part. If I forgot anything, write it in the comment section below. Come to the live stream tonight. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll sit there and talk about all the shows, as you know. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.